Okay, Cindy.
Can I just say that Jen is trying to get on. So if you can watch for that, Margaret, do you have her number?
I see her actually connecting now. She should be here right now.
Okay, great. Yay. All right. I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Park Ridge Park District Board of Park Commissioners. Today is Thursday, October 21st, and it is 7 p.m. Would you call the roll, please, Mary Ann?
Are we going to do the Pledge of Allegiance first?
We've never done it online, have we?
Yes.
We could?
have.
Okay. Can we do the pledge?
Oh, okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think that's why we don't do it online.
and we haven't. Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bendy,
Here.
Commissioner Bowe,
Here.
Commissioner Coyne,
Here.
Commissioner Hulting,
Here.
Commissioner LeDuc,
Here,
Commissioner Tunnell,
Here.
Commissioner Grau.
Here. Okay, would anyone like to amend, add, or delete an item to the current agenda? Seeing no one commenting, I will move to public comment on non-agenda items. Mary Ann, is there someone in the audience that wants to make a comment? Okay. If you would come forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Hope you're having a good night. And I want to start my comments by saying I really thought that the Oktoberfest event was quite fun and enjoyable. So congrats to the Park District for that. It was an excellent event that I attended with my family. I am here to speak to you tonight, again, regarding the Beyond the Bell program. I attended the September 16th board meeting and spoke to you at that time, hoping to hear how the Park District intended to address the large waiting list for the program. I heard feedback at that meeting and in subsequent email conversations with President Grau about the challenges with hiring of staff and in some cases with COVID-related space limitations. I want to clearly state that I appreciate the challenge of this moment for the Park District in terms of both the labor market and the pandemic. I empathize with the staff working on solutions, and I have no doubt that they are working hard. I do respect their work and your work on this problem, but it remains a serious problem, and it is a failure of the Park District to not be able to serve all the school district families on the wait list, which according to the numbers shared with me on October 8th was at nearly 250. I've researched several nearby school districts and made calls to programs that serve them. In doing so, I found challenges, but also solutions. Morton Grove School District 70 has a waiting list, which is strictly related to COVID space limitations, not staff shortages through their park district. East Main School District 63 is in a similar position, but Des Plaines School District 62 has open registration at 7 of their 8 schools. The only school with a staffing shortage-related wait list, Cumberland, is offering a starting wage of $16 an hour via their partner Right at School LLC. That is more competitive than the $11 to $15 an hour wage ranges listed on the Park District application portal. President Grau has mentioned that she is personally volunteering for the program, and that is commendable, and I respect that commitment. But we all know that this situation cannot be solved by volunteering alone, and indeed, it should not be. This situation is not a charity. This is a marketplace, and the 250 willing participants sitting on the waiting list are paying customers looking for a solution. I would implore this board to meet this demand with more competitive wages and/or hiring bonus strategies, possibly partnerships with other providers of Beyond the Bell programming. I believe the demand for Beyond the Bell in D64 is set to only grow in the future. The Park District finds itself in the enviable position of being the exclusive partner for Beyond the Bell programming at D64. In this market where working families are in need of solutions, the families of D64 need this exclusive partner to meet this market demand. And finally, I'd respectfully request that the Park District update the note to their families on the website for Beyond the Bell. I think it's important to publicly promote your continuing work to solve this problem, which I know you're doing. And the last message that is on the site is dated 8/12/2020, which I believe is a typo. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, and we will be discussing the program and the recreation part of the agenda. Is there any other public comments on non-agenda items? Okay, we'll move on to approval of minutes. I move to approve the regular board meeting minutes of Thursday, September 16th, 2021, and Thursday, October 7th, 2021. Can I have a second?
Second, it's Commissioner
All-
Leduc.
Are there any comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We'll move on to report of park officials. I do not have a report. We'll move on to the attorney. I think I saw Dirk on here earlier.
I'm here. Hold on. I'm trying to find the camera thing. There it is. Good evening. So my report tonight is a couple of things that have to be in open session. So both former President Tillins and Gail sat for depositions in the Bussey property litigation. And we've just received a subpoena for more Park District documents. So we'll be responding in due course to that. The depositions were fine. They weren't that long. Gail's an excellent witness. Let's hope we never have to try that again, though, because you know it's not the thing you want to be the best at. But she was a good witness. Did her job. Other than that, it's getting time for budget levy and all the rest. So we're ready to help out on that. There's some possibility of some things pending down in the veto session. If you've been reading your IAPD circulars from Jason, we're working on those. And if you have questions on them, let me know. But at the moment, that's it for my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll move on to the Executive Director, Gail.
Thank you, Cindy. President Grau. I'll continue on the theme of budget. It has been budget meeting week for me with the staff, and happy to say that they put in a tremendous amount of work prior to me getting the budget, and so they made my job easier, but we're still reviewing and revising, and I'm asking a lot of questions as usual. So that is going on this week. And as a reminder again, that we'll be discussing the sections of the budget starting at the November meetings. I'm probably stealing Sandra's thunder, but please mark 6 o'clock for the November meetings and expect some healthy time for those meetings, healthy, lengthy time for the budget meetings. But I'm proud of the staff for the work on that. We had a couple great trainings on the same training, but all full-time staff went through a training this week, and the title is Acting with Respect and Diplomacy in the Workplace. It was led by a consultant from HR Source, Candace Fisher, who has also worked with the district on other initiatives. She did a great job, and I think the staff, the reviews and evaluations we're getting back are very good about just handling, you know, the heightened issues going on in terms of customer, you know, dealing with the customers. And she gave some great tips and handouts, so it went very well. Oakton, we finished going to the stage in the process of going out to the public meetings, a few more next week. Been very good, and some more challenging than others in terms of, you know, the areas we were speaking and different things like that. But we hit 28 meetings, and that includes the community-wide meetings that we had. And those are the community meeting content and presentation is on the website. If anybody asks you if there's going to be more meetings, they can view that on the website. So now the survey will be going out any day to the public, and we've encouraged everybody to please fill out that survey, and I encourage you to do the same if anybody starts asking you about Oakton, as that's an important next step. And then Margaret and I met with with Paul Hanley from Beyond Your Base, and then the gentleman doing the poll that Paul is subcontracts with, the hybrid poll. And that will be the week of November 15th is what he's targeted for that. And that is, he says he usually gets a third cell phone, a third phone, landline, and a third email, where it used to be more, of course, landline, right? And that is a scientific hybrid, meaning that he only calls, I mean, his goal for our type of community is 250 to 300 responses on that. So it was very interesting hearing how he goes through this and how many he gets for national elections and how many targets for, you know, regional issues, national elections, things like that. So he's very experienced in this. Again, that's an independent company, just like the survey the written survey that will tabulate those results. And after that, it'll come to the task force and then to the board in December. So I think that was it. And on my general comments, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, I'll move on to any questions on the human resource or the marketing reports. I'd be happy to answer. And if not, that is my report.
Okay, we'll move to finance.
I have a question about
Oop.
the market report. I was just curious, the comments received the website form. There were like 23 this September versus 8 last year. So a sizable jump. Is there any hot topic coming in through the website lately?
I'll let Margaret
Or-
respond to that.
Margaret? Or is it just
Not
the
really.
you?
It's just, you know, it varies. This one, I didn't notice the difference. What I didn't compare it to is August. It might be pretty close in line to what August was. So it's just kind of holding with how we've been doing this year.
So there's been more comments coming in through the website this year.
Yeah, in general.
Okay. That was my question. I just wanted to know if they were about a certain topic.
No, they all vary. Usually
Okay.
it's about a specific program, like in a
Okay.
very specific question.
That's all
Okay.
I-
Any other questions? All right, Commissioner Tunnell, take it away.
Thank you. I'd like to turn the floor over to Superintendent DeAngelis, please, for finance.
Thank you, Commissioner Tunnell. The written finance report begins on page 13 of your board packet. I'll be going over the financial performance details with the monthly report by funds, but if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. No one has any questions on the written report. We can go ahead and move on to the monthly report by funds. So I think last month I was asked if we're going to continue to hear about the delay in property taxes, and that answer is yes. But things are moving along, and it looks, it looks like this will right itself in October here. So the treasurer's report on page 15 still shows a strong cash investment position at 10.9 million. But you can see in the projection graph that it is below budget projections by about 2 million. And that's due to the delay in property taxes. The budget anticipated to have received about 1.9 million more property taxes through September than we actually received at that point. The portfolio reports on the following 3 pages continue to reflect the low interest rate environment. And now that we've gotten these property tax receipts, I'm going to be working with PMA to review our investment options. So the report by funds for September begins on page 19 of the board packet. The total surplus across all funds is now below budget by about 1.1 million and lower than the prior year by about the same amount. And again, these variances continue to be driven largely by the delay in property taxes. The general fund on page 20 shows that we're lower than budgeted revenues, while expenses also continue to be below budget, yet greater than the prior year, which we would expect our expenses to be higher as we're coming back from the COVID environment of last year. So the resulting net surplus of 1.9 million is lower than budget by about 900,000 and lower than the prior year by 1.8 million. So the general fund anticipated to receive 1.6 million more of property taxes through September. In the recreation fund on page 21, recreation revenues were 71% of budget through September. And we can compare that to August, it was 68% of budget. So you can see that that's growing. Expenses are also lower, also about 70% of budgeted. So the resulting fund surplus is 81% of budget. And again, that's an improvement compared to August when it was 48% of budget due to the delay in property taxes. The recreation fund anticipated to receive 324,000 more of property taxes through September in the budget. And had we received that, the fund surplus would have been 12% greater than budget. So we hope we'll see this continued improved performance in the rec fund now that property taxes are catching up here in October. So the next page shows the capital fund. As we talked about in previous board meetings, the 1.8 million variance in expenses compared to the budget is attributable to slower spending than we had anticipated in the budget. However, revenues are also similarly reduced due to the timing and amount of the bond issue. So the net deficit as of September is pretty close to what was budgeted. So lastly, looking at the operating fund on page 23, I'd like to highlight that through September, operating results of about a 1.3 million surplus to date are below budget by 625,000 and about 140,000 lower than this time last year. So if we had received the additional 1.4 million of property taxes, which are attributable to our operating fund, the operating fund surplus would have been greater than budget by about 748,000. Then the fund balance projection table and the cash and fund balance projection graphs. You can see the actual cash position and the actual fund balance below budget still through September, but we expect that to right itself by the end of October and hopefully will remain better than budgeted as projected at year end. So does anyone have any questions regarding the monthly report by funds? Hey, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go on to approval of the expenditures. We have the voucher list that was sent out earlier this week. I move to approve for payment vouchers in the total amount of $484,254.29.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Holting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
Thank you for the report, Superintendent DeAngelis, and I'd like to yield the floor to Commissioner Bendy with Recreation.
Thank you, John. All right, turning it over to Superintendent Armour for Recreation. What do you have? What report do you have for us, April?
Good evening. I wanted to highlight just a few things that this past month we've hired 2 new full-time team members. We're thrilled to have them on board. They come with a wonderful background and a lot of knowledge in the areas that they've been hired for already. The summer wrapped up with a concert and kicked off fall with Oktoberfest and a preschool family fun night. I did include an update on the Beyond the Bell participation and also added a chart about the applicants. We thought this might be helpful for the board to see the applications coming through. Participation across the board continues to grow slowly. Definitely in all areas, more growth than last year. The fitness center, we do see people still putting their memberships on hold, but also still see new members coming in. The feedback we're getting there is, that some people are just having a hard time wearing their masks while working out. We also included an end of the season outdoor aquatics summary for you. So there's a lot of information and a lot of numbers in there. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. But overall, we feel like we had a very successful year despite the obstacles and mitigations that we had to face, especially at the beginning of the year, not knowing, exactly how we were going to be able to open at each facility and opening initially under the reservation system. And then at the end, we added some upcoming events and some fun things coming up in October and November. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Cindy?
Just piggybacking a little bit on the Beyond the Bell thing. I noticed the preschool numbers are still, well, I'm wondering why the 2020 number is 346, first of all, and then why the 2021 number is so low. Maybe I'll just put it that way.
It's the time of year. It was the registration numbers are reflective of the prior to the shutdown total numbers.
Okay, and then do we have waiting lists for preschool, or are those people tend to enroll, or?
I'm not sure about preschool. I'll have to get back to you on that.
So that's not a staffing challenge.
We did have a lot of teachers in place already from last year that remained on board. So there were a few shifts, but for the most part, it's still the same staff.
Okay, well, it would be good to know why the numbers are that way. I was expecting you to say that we had limitations or staffing issues.
There are still some restrictions on space for the DCFS program. So there's a little bit there, yes. So I can find out specifically which programs still have the limitations in the program compared to last year also.
So those are COVID restrictions or because we've been certified?
No, the restrictions due to smaller space requirements.
What does that mean?
We initially were only able to open classrooms, I believe, in 2020 for 10 participants. And then at one point they opened it up for more, but I still don't believe we're at the maximum capacity that we were allowed for DCFS programs pre-COVID.
I have a question. Well, maybe April, you can send us all 7 of us that information when you find out about that, because I'm curious too on the
Sure.
follow. Yeah, thank you.
Will do.
Is there any other questions for anybody, or?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, so for Beyond the Bell, I believe, and I don't know if I'm remembering right, I think there was talk earlier in the year how we were in touch with other districts about having similar challenges with hiring for after-school programs. And I was wondering if that talk with other districts had continued, and if a lot of other districts were still having problems, and have we learned anything from districts who aren't having as many problems? I think part of it might be different natures of different communities, but I guess my question is whether communication with other districts about before and after school program hiring has continued, and if we've learned anything from those conversations about similar challenges or districts that are having more success.
I have a chain of superintendents that I communicate with regularly about a variety of topics, and this is definitely one that's on all of our radar. And as far as I've heard, as recently as a few weeks ago, that everyone is still having the same challenges as we are and have large wait lists and, are doing the same things that we're doing. So I can check back in with them again, and specifically the ones that were mentioned at the beginning of the meeting to see if something's changed with them recently. I believe, I'd have to look back at my notes, but I believe, some of the programs have a lot less participants than we do as well. So that may be part of it.
Okay.
I had a question because I appreciated you putting the data from the Labor Day, the earlier job fair. I was wondering if there was any other job fairs coming up specific to the Beyond the Bell program, or any other recruitment events specific to Beyond the Bell coming up.
No, not at this time. I know it was also mentioned at the beginning that we do have a recruitment program in place for our current staff. So we've tried that. We haven't gotten any referrals through our current staff either, but right now we don't have another job fair in the works.
Well, and I think it either the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, sorry, I don't remember which, I think Commissioner Hulting had brought up the question about maybe some sort of deal for people who work it to give them a discount or a break on the costs for their own children. Has there been anything else done regarding that particular aspect of Carrot?
I did talk to the staff following that meeting, and they had talked to our current staff about it, and there wasn't anyone that needed that at this time. And we said, well, if you know of anyone who's interested, along with the referral, then we can talk to them about that as well. We did have a separate meeting with the school district today as well, and one of the questions asked by Gail was if they're still struggling for staffing, and they're well aware of our situation and they're having the same challenges. They said luckily not with their teachers, but all the support staff as well, and many of the support staff that they have they refer to the Beyond the Bell program and have previously worked in dual roles for the school district and us. So, you know, we're still continuing to reach out and ask the questions, and you know, I'll certainly reach out to other districts if they've come up with, again, to see if they've come up with anything that we haven't thought of.
Has there been any talk with, like, say, the local, any of the local colleges, community or otherwise, regarding specifically reaching out to the students in the education program, and perhaps like a 4-credit arrangement too as an additional incentive?
I know we've reached out to all of the colleges and all of the high schools, even though we really don't historically get many high schoolers just because of the timing on the program and all the after school activities. But I'll check with them if they specifically reached out to the education departments.
Because I feel like the students that might want a little more experience might be the ones that are, say, majoring in education and could use, like, maybe if the college would do some sort of arrangement, like the ed students get actually a credit, kind of like, you know, if law school students volunteer at a law school clinic, they get credit for that in addition to the hourly wage. I mean, I feel like that might be kind of a different incentive, and if they're getting college credit, like, that doesn't cost us anything, which is kind of like a nice little plus.
Yes.
So just a thought.
Sure, thank you.
I have three thoughts. One is, are we getting any feedback that the vaccine might improve that now that kids are going to be able to get them when they're younger, will that improve our labor pool? Are we getting any feedback to that effect?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Bummer. Also, I was talking to a friend about the program, and I have to say, in my capacity, I volunteer. I can't say I'm employed there. And she said, oh, my company would probably let me volunteer. And I'm like, well, you can't volunteer. You have to be an employee. But it made me think that maybe we have to do some marketing on this, and not so much say it's a job, but it's a service to our community. I don't know if, and if people knew they didn't have to do 5 days a week or whatever, if they, if people could do this for our community. So I don't know how you'd spin that, but I'm sure Margaret could figure something out, because she seemed like, she would do it. She likes little kids, and she said, oh, I'm sure my employer would let me do that weekly. I don't know how many employers have that flexibility, but. And then lastly, I believe we will be discussing wages next month and a change in wages for those positions, because I talked to April earlier about this, and I believe there's been a real disruption in childcare, and I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. So can you confirm that, either Gail or April? Or
yes, that will be a discussion point for the budget presentation,
which is next month, the first Thursday.
This one will be the second Thursday for operations, or the third Thursday, second meeting.
Salaries for full-time, I believe, is a part of the first meeting's agenda, but I'll also include, kind of some totals for our other part-time staff. But April will get into more details in the operating presentation, which is the second meeting in November. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I just think we have to think long-term about this. I don't think it's a quick fix.
I agree. I was about to build on to that. Last meeting or the meeting before, we had talked about how typically everybody registered by August 1st in the past had been accommodated. And I know how hard everybody is working, and I think we're all hopeful that this year is a blip and next year things will go back to normal. But I agree with Commissioner Grau that perhaps the economy has changed, the labor force has changed, and I just want to be ready going forward for next year to go more smoothly. So April, I'd appreciate any, I mean, I understand that you're on a continuous loop with your peers in those other districts, but I like Commissioner Grau are looking longer term on this and want us to be ready next year if it doesn't go back to how it was, which from listening to every podcast and every article about labor issues, it seems probable it may not. So I appreciate any information you can get on how others might be having success. Thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, John Tunnel. All right, what do you got?
Yeah, I was just curious. I know that we have a long-term need for next year, but also we kind of have an urgency with the wait list. I know Roosevelt is highest right now. Is there still limitations on spacer with one of the gyms? Is that still an issue at Roosevelt? Just
We only
trying to
have one
figure
of
out.
the 2 spaces right
Yeah.
now. Yes.
And has there been a lot of feedback on wages? I know the community has voiced that we should raise the wages, which I think we should highly explore in the short term as well, and not just wait till next year. If we can get, qualified candidates, I look at the list, there's 245 people on the wait list. Just doing simple math in my mind, if we bring in the revenue, we should be able to raise the wage a little bit in the meantime. So I don't know what kind of feedback you're getting from the candidates. I know you guys have looked like you had hired 14 since August, which is great. I know we probably could use another 20 roughly, if my math serves me. I'm getting old, so it's not as quick as it used to be. But say we can get those 20 people with a higher starting wage. Maybe we gather some people from other communities. Park Ridge, we have a lot of people in the community that could benefit from work. So hopefully we can find a short-term solution. But I know space at Roosevelt was one of the reasons, because when I see that, I have kids. Well, my daughter goes to Roosevelt, and I hate to see that many kids, 89 families, have to, get back here and forth. So if there's a way that we could look at a short-term solution for this year to just try to bridge the gap. I know you guys are working, but the gentleman that spoke tonight, I was happy that his feedback, we appreciate it. And I just think, of all the people that have come out tonight to make comment, this is a high topic. So hopefully we can look at a short-term solution as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Can I just comment that it doesn't, from my understanding, that wait list may be like a kid can't come on Tuesday, Thursday, but they're already coming Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, correct?
That could be correct. Yes.
Right. So some of those people may be being partially served. They may be looking for 1 or 2 or 5 days. I'm not saying which, but it's not 245 people waiting for a 5-day coverage.
Okay, based on the information I'm seeing, that's how I interpret it. So if that's the case, I'd like to have it more accurate,
Yeah, it's really hard to compare apples to apples with how we have done things in the past. But we can certainly try and narrow down some of the detail a little more if you'd like.
I would just be curious how many families have no as the answer versus, if it's 100 people versus the 245. To me, we're serving more as much as we can given the situation. I understand what we're going through. I'm a small business owner. I see it every day myself with, recruiting my own employees. So, but it's important that we can see a picture of, like Cindy had that information. That's the first I've ever heard that on my time on the board. So it's just important that we can all be on the same page when we see that information. So we know that, these people have Tuesday, Thursday. That's great. At least they have an option. But, is it 15 people? Is it 100 people that don't have any options? So I would just appreciate that information. If it's easy to get, And if it's not, that's fine. But now I'm aware, so that knowledge is half the battle there. So thank you, Cindy.
Sure.
I think just to add to the conversation, you know, we are very sympathetic to this issue and very, you know, doing everything possible. We want to, the last thing we want is wait lists. We hate wait lists. So this is a situational, societal issue, and we're doing and reaching out to everybody. We've offered bonuses, as we've talked about. April can speak to this, but I don't believe the wage has been an issue with our hiring. So we are going to have a recommendation in the budget to change that, but that has not been the issue, or we would have done it, you know, because we have that authority within, you know, the budget. So I just want the board to know that the staff is, you know, doing whatever we can. In terms of offering another job fair, you know, we did have 30 some people come through, but you know, for the amount, you know, one more staff is great, right? But putting on a job fair, it takes a lot of staff time, right? So we're taking resources from, you know, the full-time staff to go do that. I think it's a great thing, but I don't think we can just keep having them, you know, with that number that are coming through. So just know that, you know, and like April said, you know, we talk to people all the time. I talk to directors. I know that our rec staff has groups that talk to people. This is an issue across the board. And we have had such high numbers in the past, as April said, that's why maybe some other districts aren't, it appears that they don't have wait lists, and maybe they don't, but they don't have the 1,000, you know, the demand that we have for this program. And we talked to the school about some things, and we have talked to them about the space, you know, the additional spaces. That is right now not our primary issue. It's the staffing. So if it came to that, you know, I think the school district would be, you know, would work with us as best as they can, but they are using specifically at Roosevelt, I know, for, you know, when our discussions about that for COVID, their needs for spreading people out, and the teachers and their needs, and based on their regulation, their COVID regulation. So, you know, we are working with them closely on this issue. They're the same constituents, and so they're aware of that. So I just wanted to also add that in. But anybody that has any new ideas that we haven't thought of, you know, HR has been very involved, marketing. Diane's talked to her peers. You know, we even talked about hiring a consultant or a, you know, temporary HR agency to help us with this. And we're not finding the people, but, you know, you will see some initiatives for this and our other areas. You know, it's not just Beyond the Bell, but I know that this is the heightened one at this time, but you'll see some initiatives in the budget for this issue across the district. Thank you.
Gail, can you refresh my memory how we know that wage isn't an issue?
I believe the applicants that have not come on board, the reason that they, you know, dropped out or whatever is not the wages, correct, April?
Correct. So we don't know, obviously, from the people we haven't heard from or who haven't applied.
Right.
Okay.
It's more the hours of this program. We've always had.
Yeah, it is weird hours.
Yeah, and we've usually, as April stated, you know, when we talk to the school district, some of the people, the aides and the lunchroom staff are a lot of the staff that we usually get to work at this program. And those are the staff they're also having a hard time recruiting.
Can I also ask, have we followed up with people who have worked for us in the past and find out why they're not coming back?
I asked that question too, Cindy. So good question, but yes, they have reached out to them, and I don't know the reasoning, but.
I know they've reached out. I don't know all of the specific reasons, though.
That would be good to know.
Yeah, well, I do know at the time, some people, you know, when we didn't have the program or the participation, they went and got other jobs, or some people aren't interested in working anymore. Like those were the common things I heard at the beginning when we first started asking everyone to come back.
I wonder if we can, you know, rattle those bushes again.
We can ask them, you know, that April brings up a really good point. You know, in our industry, and the service industry, people, you know, there was some hesitancy to come back and do these jobs because, we had to we did some furloughing, right? So they're looking for steady work. And I know a full-time staff member of ours that went somewhere else because of that, reason. So, it is some of the nature of our programming as well. And people fear that, if there's another shutdown, what is the stability of a job and a service industry, a place that provides service. So complicated, a lot of factors.
Any other comments or questions for April?
I just want to end on a positive note, and I loved seeing the pool numbers. My family had a blast at the pool this summer. We're the kind of people who like to go to the pool for like an hour and a half and just like do little doses. So it was great to have the passes. And I'm also a lurker in many mom Facebook groups, and I think from city residents and like Northwest Side, like I'm in a couple of Northwest Side groups, and kind of broader suburban groups, and we get a lot of positive buzz about the Prospect Park splash pad as well as Centennial from non-residents looking for non-residents who don't necessarily have pools at their disposal. So I saw a lot of positive attention to those two facilities in particular, people recommending them. So, and I occasionally would also put a little shout out in there, but it was, I did see some good positive attention, and it was good to see the good non-resident numbers. So.
Yeah, I agree. The numbers were incredible considering the staffing challenges.
Yes, the pool staff is to be commended because they did have a lot of challenges with, a lot of the restrictions and everything. And I will just point out, those are two of our newer facilities that we worked hard at this district to keep up with the times and keep our facilities current. So see what happens when that works, right? The splash pad, I mean, the numbers are incredible, much higher than we would have expected. So that's a kudos to the whole district for being up on the trends and up on, building facilities that people want to come to. So.
All right, thank you. Anything else for April or no? Well, thank you very much, April, and good luck with, Cindy, go ahead. Good luck with recruiting.
I wonder if you'll have a summary of the community garden after the first year.
We hadn't talked about that. I don't know, Terry, we can discuss and put something together.
Sure.
All right, should we turn it over to Melissa and Terry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we should. Thank you, Joan. Buildings and Grounds, Superintendent Wolf. Would you like to review any highlights from your report?
Thank you. Yes, my report does begin on page 39 of the PDF. I do want to let everyone know and welcome one of our full-time staff that I was remiss in putting in the report, but Anthony Ackerman has joined us. He's replaced a full-time position that we had open at Oakton Ice Arena. He comes to us with some experience from School District 64, and so we're welcoming to him in his new position. He started just last week. I also do want to take a minute to highlight the kindness of Park Ridge Baseball in helping fund some improvements at several of our ball fields. Something that they came to us with and asked that they could have the approval to do the work and that they would fund it. And of course, Gail had no problem with them funding some improvements on our ball fields, and we were happy to work with them. This will be a benefit for everyone in the community. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions on the report. I guess I should highlight or just mention Woodland Park. Woodland Park, they did have some equipment was brought out this week. They did have some staff out there beginning to move some gravel, and they had to set some stakes and control points and GPS locations. And we do anticipate work to be fully commencing here as soon as tomorrow. And once work begins here, work will begin moving in earnest, and they will be working quickly towards the work out there. So it's been definitely a bit of a challenge, and we had some permitting issues up front, but those permitting issues have been resolved, and now it's been kind of a supply and demand issue. One of the challenges that I spoke to the contractor about just this afternoon was, the procurement of the work, the drainage stuff that they needed to begin the project with. MWRD requires that they begin the project by installing the drainage work, and so they needed to have their catch basins and storm sewers in place. Well, those items are those precast concrete pieces that are manufactured per specifications, and those weren't finalized until the permitting was approved. So, they work closely with the contractor that makes those parts for them, but they are beyond busy because they can't find enough staff, and they've got a lot of work going on. And so they're doing everything they can and pulling favors to try to get those very key components of that project out here so that we can begin the project, and that's where we're at right now. So we're continuing to work closely with it to make sure that we get this going, and they still anticipate that they're going to be able to get the vast majority of this work completed, and we'll be looking for asphalt to be laid in the springtime. So I look forward to a lot of changes out there over the coming weeks. I would be happy to answer any other questions though that anybody has about my board report.
I have some questions.
Sure.
So the 40 trees, I know we've lost some trees this year. I was just wondering if the tree plantings were focused in certain areas or they're all over the place. Are we replacing trees that have come down or trying to add to the canopy? Tell me about the trees.
Yeah, sure. It's a little bit of both. So we do have a goal that we try to replace at least 40 trees or plant at least 40 trees every year. We have been exceeding that goal, sometimes by many, sometimes by a few. But we do look to plant in places that we have lost trees if it makes sense. Obviously, we don't want to lose a tree and plant one in the stump grindings of an old tree because it's just not a good practice. But we do look to areas nearby to help fill in the canopy, and we look for locations that we can, add to the canopy. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and we have all sorts of different species of trees, which we'll report on later. At the time that I was writing this report, we were in the midst of getting our deliveries. It was literally happening over the days we were receiving the deliveries. And inevitably, there's always a couple of trees that, well, that one wasn't available like we thought it was. And so we switched out this other one. And it's kind of a few last minute negotiations with the nurseries when those trees get ordered. But so we'll report on the locations of all those different trees, as well as the locations of the two elm trees that we got from the Morton Arboretum, which we did pick up just this afternoon.
I had another question about the vandalism at Main Park, the garage and the windows. Is that in the house?
No,
or at another?
There's a storage garage directly at the end of the parking lot, and that's where those took place. Both of those.
And the portico looks great.
Great, thank you.
That's all my questions. Does anybody else have any questions about buildings and grounds? Joan?
Hi. Yeah, Terry, have you talked to the city lately about that Marvin Parkway? What's going on there?
I have not spoken to them about Marvin Parkway. I did just get the opportunity to make the introduction to their new community development and one of their other coordinators in that department that have recently been replaced. So we do have some, future meetings just to kind of catch up on some of these things, and that'll be a good time to bring that up with them. I, have had many conversations with their city engineer and public works director, so they're aware, but nothing at this point.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
John?
I just wanted to say it was nice to walk in the front entrance tonight. It looks great. I know the project took a while, but it really looks prestige, so it looks very, very nice. So And also, I just want to thank you guys for allowing the improvements to the fields. Having skin cancer in the past, like the protection for the kids is so critical. So I really appreciate that they'll be better protected. Having my son playing in baseball, that's always been one of those things. We have to figure out putting tent material on top of that. So it'd just be nice to have that. So thank you for allowing them to do that.
Yeah, we're happy to work with them on that for sure.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about buildings and grounds? Okay. So I guess I will turn it over to Commissioner Leduc to talk about policy.
Woo woo. Okay, so we'll start off with the financial policies, and this is kind of, normally they have the motion at the top. Gail, would you prefer me to make the motion first and then have Sandra talk, or? Great. All right. So I move to approve the amended internet control and risk management sections of the financial policy 3.142 as presented. Is there a second?
I think you said
Second.
internet instead of internal.
Oh, what did I say?
Internet. Didn't you say it?
I don't think I did, but just to make sure, I will read it again. I move to approve the amended internal control and risk management sections of the financial policy 3.142 as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
Great. Superintendent DeAngelis?
Thanks, Commissioner Leduc. So at the last board meeting, we presented this section of the financial policies and with a marked up version that showed all of the changes and explanations and had it open for the board's discussion. So now we're just showing you the clean version and requesting approval.
Great, thank you. And do any commissioners have any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, Marianne, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne, Commissioner Holting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Yes.
All right, so that passes. So now moving on to the next section.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Commissioner
I'm trying to
Leduc.
scroll down here while I look at the camera and then like scroll down on my thing.
So we've been working on the financial policies for a while. This is the last section until we find another one that we think probably belongs in the financial policies, right? But this is the accounting, auditing, and financial reporting section, which again, hopefully will conclude, and then we'll be able to compile them all so that we have one place where all the financial policies sit together, and I'd like nothing better than to publish it in the final budget document so that then annually we will look at this and make recommendations for any changes to the financial policies as we're kind of working through the budget process. So here at the beginning, we've added some language from the Government Finance Officers Association Financial Reporting Best Practices. The rest of these sections were all previous policies within the Administrative Policy Manual. So we've updated them for clarity or to reflect actual practice, and updated or corrected legal citations. They've been reviewed internally, they've been reviewed by legal counsel, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take suggestions for any additional revisions.
Are there any commissioner comments or questions? All right, going once, going twice. All right, thank you, Superintendent DeAngelis. So yes, next up, we're going to talk about the big one, the Board of Commissioners Internal Policies and Bylaws Manual. Gail, Executive Director Mountcastle, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I would. Very, very excited. I know everybody else is as well, to be bringing this manual, the Board of Park Commissioners Internal Policy and Bylaws, the revised draft, we'll call it. I just wanted to go through the process, and because this is such a large manual and the process that we went through, and then just to talk you through, where the changes are coming from, et cetera. So about 3 years ago, I believe we started with this one, revising this, very involved and detailed process, like our other major manuals, the personnel, the ordinance manual. They hadn't been touched in terms of an overall comprehensive edit since the 90s. Well, this one was from 1985. So you can imagine how many things have changed, with the caveat of additions of new statutes that were, implemented, that we did put some of those through the years. The district did in the manual, they were inserted, but not an overhaul of the entire manual. So you can imagine the type of project it was. The good news is this is the last of our major manuals that we have taken on, in the past several years, so they will all now be updated and reviewed on a regular basis. So how did we go about this? Mary Ann started and gathered examples from other park districts. Great thing about park districts, we share a lot of information with each other. So we picked a few that we thought were well written and used that to update the manual, the current manual. She took our manual, added in sections that were missing, or expanded the sections that were there. At the time, Attorney Hoffman reviewed and edited this, and then it was just put on the back burner for various amount of reasons, other priorities. So we picked this back up this year. Jennifer LeDuc joined us in the review process as the policy chair and edited. We met and updated with her updates, and then Dirk took his turn, and other attorneys at Ansel Glink on certain sections reviewed this. So what we did is added anything that was a new statute by law and or a new bylaw of the board that may have been adopted in the past by the district, but had not been added to this document that applied to the board business. We rewrote certain sections to what is current practice. We moved sections around where it made sense for the better flow and combined sections. The one policy that is new is the social media section of the communication policy. Some of the commissioners that were here when Commissioner Grau and I, President Grau now, started working on this policy, and it was picked back up when we picked back up the manual this year, and reviewed and revised what we had put together by Ansel Glink, specifically by their attorney that writes books on social media policies, and added that into the communications section. So the social media policy is a new policy, and this section is already, we combined other things in the communications section that were just randomly throughout the commissioner manual that should go under communications, the email and text message policy, for instance, that was already approved by a past board. And then the communication policy, like I said, it was all combined into one section. There's a lot going on with the update of this manual and this process. So what do we do and how do we go through it for the board? We can do any which way you would like. I would suggest that if the board has had a chance to review and has sections that individual commissioners feel like they want to bring up for conversation and maybe have us go back and do some revisions, that we do that, and then the board can talk about those specific sections that, you know, they have concerns with at future meetings. Or we can do, you know, some of that tonight if you're ready to do that. This is not on a time schedule, clearly, but it's another thing that we think will be a benefit to the commissioners in the district as we move forward. We do have budget meetings coming up in November, so if we would like to talk about it a little tonight, so you can give any comments you would like, and we can pick this back up in December. I'm open for any suggestions or any which way we would like to move forward with that. So I turn it to the board for comment.
Any commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Tunnell?
I feel like I've seen this thing several times. Like it just keeps sneaking back up on us. But I feel that the work that's gone on into it, I know President Grau in the past had done a lot of work and we had reviewed it in the past, but I think it just keeps getting better and better. So like in my initial review, I think everything looks good to me at this point. But if I do have any, you know, concerns, I definitely will reach out by email and let you know. But I appreciate all the time that went into it. I know it's been quite a process. So on my time on the board, I think you've gone through about every process manual, and it's great to have new life in those policies and the contributions everybody's made. I appreciate. So thank you for your time and attention to this. And Commissioner Leduc, since you are the policy guru, I trust your judgment, and I think you've done a great job to help with it as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to say that the final round of edits I sent back to Gail and Marianne, most of my changes were just minor, like technical grammar or like punctuation kind of things. So I'm pretty happy, but hopefully, obviously I want to hear the input of the rest of you. Anyone else?
I do have several things I want to discuss, and I also just wonder if all the commissioners got through this, because it's really long. And so I don't want to assume everybody's gotten through it, and I don't want to call anybody out to say they haven't gotten through it. But, you know, maybe have some discussion tonight and bring it up again, just in case people want to read it quicker, you know, more slowly than they did this time. Because it's
not up for a vote at least tonight, so.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I can bring stuff up now or whatever, however you want to.
Sure. I mean, especially if it's like major topics, it's
okay.
We could revisit.
Well, starting with the mission statement on page 2 or 86, whichever you want. I don't think I've ever seen the mission statement before. It said we'll be the premier environmentally conscious park and recreation agency. And I was pleasantly surprised, but I think we have nothing to back that up in our core areas. So I'm wondering if that word is appropriate. Or that phrase, premier environmentally conscious park, because we don't really address that in any of the plan core areas.
That's a good point. What we did is take our current vision and mission statement that were created before my time, right? And this is the current vision and mission statement. This is on the list of things to update. And so, as I said to Commissioner Leduc, you know, in certain areas, you know, this is what it is now, right? And this wasn't in this manual before, but we thought it should be in there. And then I don't think that we should hold the whole manual up, though, to because I think that's going to be a whole nother set of discussions with the board, right? So what we would do is once that vision and mission statement, the staff got it to a certain point. We had some workshops on it, and we just, again, I think that was I don't want to blame everything on COVID, but that we stopped, right? I mean, we were ready to bring something to the board, and we hadn't had our full conversations with staff to be comfortable bringing you an update to that. So this is the current one. And then it's a good example when we would revise the district's vision and mission statement or anything else in here, we just update that section of the manual. If that makes sense.
So for clarification,
Yeah, it makes sense. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
so the mission, we're not really voting on the mission and vision statement.
Exactly.
You're just restating it in this document, which we are voting on, but so we don't have to have a discussion on the veracity of the mission statement. We can come back to that later.
Yes.
Because that
Well, we're not
just be
even
reprinted.
voting on the manual tonight.
Yeah, we're not voting on the manual tonight, but yes, your premise is
Right.
correct, that we're just putting what is current, the district's current vision and mission statement. And then if the board wants to make changes to it, we completely agree that it needs some tweaking, and that that's a project and that we're working on as well. So when that happens, we would change it in the manual.
And Commissioner Grau, you have some other comments?
Yeah, I just don't know how I feel about that, but I'll think about it. Let's see. I have some wording things that I could just get to you offline.
Great.
One question in 1.05H, which is page 88 or 4. I thought it was interesting. The board shall encourage its members to contact city, county, state, and federal elected representatives to advocate in the best interest of the district. I wonder if someone could speak to that, because I don't think that's been in practice. Is that new, old?
That is pulled, that's a new to our manual, but certainly is always encouraged when there's issues affecting the park district. We just have not, that are being debated in Springfield, minimum wage or, the different things that they're voting on implementing in Springfield. I do ask the board sometimes to write letters. It hasn't happened in a while. City officials, we certainly, when there's an issue, we ask the board to talk to the aldermen. We talk, have our liaison talk to the city representatives. So that's kind of a practice of boards when needed, like it's as needed.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just, I would never have considered that was in our job description. Going up to E, I'm not sure that this is the board's responsibility. Assume responsibility for keeping the public informed concerning purposes, achievements, requirements, and financial condition of the parks, recreation facilities, and programs of the district. Especially if we're not supposed to have our own Facebook pages. Like, how would we do those things?
I think the board is, out in the community and contacted by the public often on issues. So I think it's the duty of the board to be informed of the issues and get the public the right answers when they can. If you think that needs a rewrite and it's too strong, maybe we need to look at the wording.
I can take a look at that.
Yeah, assume responsibility for keeping public informed.
Might be a little strong.
Yeah.
We'll look at that.
Yes, taking it isolated, I can see your perspective on that. And I can rework that a little.
Was somebody else going to say something? On 89.5, this is maybe a quibble, but 1.09B. When you said new commissioners shall be invited to meet with the executive director to discuss services they perform for the district. Is it wrong to say onboarding or training? And don't you pretty much require it? I mean,
It's not required. I asked the board to come in and, do the orientation. But where would you like that word, onboarding? I'm fine with that.
I don't know. I'm just to meet with and discuss the services they perform. I think it's more specific than that, in my opinion. But
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's to talk about the district as a whole, I think. We can, it's a good point.
I don't know, orientation or onboard.
Would you prefer something like to discuss the role they will be expected to perform in the community and the specifics of the district itself, something to that effect?
I don't think it's a discussion. I think it's a training, isn't it?
It's almost like an orientation of sorts.
Yeah.
Right. I had orientation or onboarding or training.
That's a good point.
I kind of like the word orient. If we're putting this in an official manual, I kind of like the word orientation better than onboarding.
Yeah, orientation.
Shall be invited to meet with the executive director and administrative personnel for an orientation to discuss services they perform for the district. How about that? Is somebody writing that down, or should I be?
I got it. I know I'm writing down.
Fantastic.
It's on tape. And Sandra should be in there too. Finance training. Then there was one I kind of had a pretty big quibble with, which was 91 or page 7, documentation of expenses. I don't think we do that. Before an expense for travel, meals, or lodging may be approved, the following minimum documentation must first be submitted in writing to the board. I don't believe I've ever seen that.
This is part of the Local Government Travel Expense Control Act. That's a great example of a newer act. Well, it was actually in 2016. That laid out very specifically about conference spending, et cetera. But we do it by approving this. And Sandra, you can help me. When we implemented this, you can go ahead and bring the total amount for conferences to the board. And Dirk, I see Dirk's head popped up again. And we did that at the time. And we said it's not to exceed this amount. So you can handle it that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, you've got this right, Gail. This is required. I mean, I know it's been a long time since this was updated, and I don't want to get stuck in the is-ought fallacy about what you are doing is what you ought to be doing. This is one thing where you need to do something new and different.
Actually, very similar to what I had to do when I was a state employee, whenever I would travel.
So in January or during the budget, like when would we hear something like this?
Both. There'll be a general budget appropriation for these kinds of expenses and education of commissioners. And then for the specific travel, you have to get it approved at a meeting.
All right. I had a question about Park District provided cell phones for commissioners.
What page are you on?
93 or 9. I mean, we don't have that. Do we have to have the words in there? Right in the middle of the.
Right. No, we could take that out. I think we're saying if you were to be talking about Park District business, we'd rather have you do it on district issued devices. So in terms of FOIA, and that we don't have to go to everybody's personal cell phones. But we currently don't provide the cell phone, we're just saying if it were to be Park District business.
Well, I don't see that we have that option, so.
Yeah, we should take out anything that we're referring to giving them cell phones.
Okay. Yep, good catch.
Where's my cell phone? I want a cell phone. And then I don't know if we're gonna open up Pandora's box on the social media. These are, I believe, from when I attempted to do this, that we really can't be told how to use social media. I mean, we can be told to keep records, but we're encouraged to refrain on certain things.
That's why that wording was put in there like that you're not required, but you're encouraged.
Right. So I don't know. I wrote this down. I'm going to have to read this on page 11 or 95, public forums. Sometimes Park District business is on newspaper pages, if that makes sense. So you can say, we're encouraged to utilize the Park District page, but sometimes, well, never. I don't know that you guys have put the news articles on the Park District page. So there's an article about the Park District, and you're saying that we shouldn't comment on it because it's not on the Park District's page.
Well, a couple things are in play here. One, no one commissioner speaks for the Park District. So that's why it gets tricky. You only can act collectively. And that's the social media policies around that underlying major premise, that none of you can speak for the Park District, but that's what gets misconstrued. And that's why you need to be careful about how you represent what it is you're saying. And you can say it's my own personal opinion and it's this or that. But if it's an article about the Park District, and now, Cindy, if you weigh in, it's unmistakable. You're the president. I once was on the Plan Commission, for example, and the president of the school board came in wearing school district colors and a logo on the polo shirt she was wearing. And after leading a diatribe about a development going on in the city, then said, but this is only my personal opinion. I'm not here for the school district. Well, that's not how the community takes it, and that's not the reality. And so that's why in this board policy, we're trying to give you guidance. Of course, we can't restrict your rights of free speech, but this is the guidance we're expecting, that you are expecting each other to adhere to in working in the community. If there's a split vote on something, you don't want people out there just saying, well, this is ridiculous. I'm putting staff in the crosshairs of trying to enforce a policy that was not unanimously approved. By making comments, and that happens. And so taking those lessons from different places, that's what we're trying to provide guidance here for.
Yeah, I haven't seen as much of that. I'm sure there is some if I think back on it. You know, it's more, sometimes we can add clarity to something on a newspaper article that's not fully explained or understood by the writer. So, and I guess we can tell Margaret to do it, but I don't know.
Which is the better practice. Having it come from the Park District staff or from Gail is then that is something from the body as opposed to one individual commissioner. And I don't know how you get consensus about it from the other commissioners to say a statement on behalf of the district. It's better with staff doing it because we're not going to have a meeting.
I never make statements on the behalf of the district, and I bet you 90% of the community doesn't know who I am. So it's
well,
not.
I think that, you know, I think Margaret does, as we all know, jump in on the newspaper article. You know, if the conversation is getting to a place where it sounds like there, you know, people, you know, she needs to jump in and just set the record straight for the district. She certainly jumps in. as you know, we don't get involved with all those several individual social media pages, or we would need an entire another staff, at least one staff. So we tend to respond to the district, and when, like I said, Margaret monitors them, but we don't get involved in all of the conversations unless we think it's heightened.
Right. Generally, I'll comment factually. So when there's factual inaccuracies, I'll comment to clarify, but I won't argue people's opinions at all. Also, part of my end of social media policies through the district is I'm required to state who I am and that I work for the district. So you'll often see me say like, hi, I'm Margaret Holler, Marketing and Public Relations Director with the Park District, and then go on from there, because that's what our policy requires me to do too.
Yeah. And we let you know when those kind of things should be done, but they're often when the article is copied to another page. They're not on, I don't think they're ever on the actual page of the news outlet. Am I wrong?
Sometimes they are.
Yeah, it depends on how the person shared it to the group.
That's what I'm saying. You're in groups, but you're not on the Herald Advocate page.
Well, the best thing to do, as we've talked about in the past, is for the commissioner, if you feel like you need to say something, is please, please contact the Park District for information on the subject.
I do see the Herald Advocate page, and I follow it.
And whenever I've tagged her, when I saw Park District stuff coming up in a chain, I have to say Margaret has always been fantastic and very professional in her responses.
I agree. I tag her all the time. I just think it's been different.
Well, and Cindy, you brought up an interesting thing back on page 4, which was the letter E, that we need to assume responsibility for keeping the public informed. And I totally agree that it would be something we turn over to Margaret, but at the same time, we're also being told to assume responsibility for keeping the public informed. So it's a little bit of a saying one thing and do another.
I think that statement's a little strong, duly noted. I think that the intent of that statement, how I interpret it is, if you're asked about something, you're at a baseball game, you're at a football game, and your neighbor asks you, you get a call. It's like, we need you. If you don't know the answer, just like we tell all of our staff, nobody's going to have all the answers, but refer them to the right person, or, refer them to the website, or, that type of thing. So I think that E, it's duly noted. It needs to be softened a little bit in terms of your responsibility.
If nobody else is going to jump in, page 96 or 12, it mentions civil unions. We don't still have that, do we? In Illinois?
Yeah,
Under one, we do?
well, some people were given a civil union and have not gotten married since. So it's a recognized.
That's good to know. Good to know. And then at the bottom of the page, I was here when we did this years ago, the grandfathered waiver. It seems like it applied at the time that we actually instituted that policy, if you read it, and that it would not apply now.
Well, that would mean that, yeah, that's a good point. So I think the majority of the commissioners were not on the board at that point, except for you, Cindy, right? So that would mean.
Joan was too, and I think it was written for Joan. It was written for Joan,
no,
but I think.
Good point.
So, yeah, and so then you go down to disclosure, and again, I don't think most of that applies. I think you have to put the newly elected commissioner would have to disclose.
We'll review that policy.
Yeah, so it's like it was a snapshot in time, and I think we that time.
Yeah.
So if someone gets seated next time around and their wife works for the district, they would disclose it when they're seated on the board. Because the policy has already been adopted. So anyway, I think you'll get it when you read it again. I learned something new, that public comment can't exceed an hour.
Well, you could set that rule.
Yeah.
Well, it's in here, so it's set.
Somebody,
Well, you have to set it or you can't enforce it. If without that rule being set in policy, written down, you would be there all night.
I am not complaining, but I think that we've gone over an hour before. Community garden wars and etc. And then I had a question on 18 and 102. It says written communications directed to the board and or staff along with reports from board members and staff will be placed in the minutes. I don't think I've ever seen that.
if it's written to the board as a whole, we put it in at times, but not the staff. You're right, that should be added, that should be taken out. About the
Take it
staff.
out. Take it out or put them in the minutes, one or the other.
Right.
Page 20 or 104. I don't think we've ever had a human resources liaison.
The human resources liaison is the president. That's stated somewhere.
Yeah, right below it says the president of the board will be the standing liaison for human resources.
Ah, thank you. I think because I marked it before I got to that part. All right.
I am glad to see that somebody did read this so thoroughly.
Oh my God. Yeah, so the rest of you are going to have to read it. We're going to have a test at the next time we go over this, and you're going to be tested on your policy. Well, how can you know if you're following the policy if you haven't read it? That'll be part of the onboarding or indoctrination.
I read it.
We
Didn't memorize it.
Let's just be clear about that.
I'm kidding. 22 and 106 task force. So the last line of the task force, a task force member will be charged with large volumes of work and what may be a short period of time. Can we change that to maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
The other wording things I have are just silly, but that's kind of
No, I agree with that.
Me too.
okay. 25 and 109. We're under Board of Commissioners Ethics Policy. Do we have to say that we adopted the ethics policy on March 15, 2012?
Marianne and I just talked about that today. Yes, we're going to add that. Thank you.
You're going to take it out?
No, we're going to, like, if you see in the other sections where it is a policy that was already adopted by the board, in the next to the title, we would say adopted or amended on a certain date along with the title.
Okay, that makes sense. So that it's uniform and that information is.
So the new commissioners understand that was something that was adopted by the old board, right? Or the board in 2015.
But wasn't the whole thing adopted by the board, or some of it was just statutes?
No, these, I mean, it was certain things that we've updated by law or by suggested by the board. You know, the nepotism one was something the board worked on and suggested. So those are how they end up in here.
All right, and I put my last 5 pages somewhere and I don't know where, so I'm done.
Any other comments? All right, so seeing none, oh, still me. So next up, I move to approve and designate Commissioner Joan Bendy as delegate and staff member Gail Mountcastle as first alternate to the annual business meeting of Illinois Association of Park Districts on Saturday, January 30th, 2021. Is there a second? Well, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And April Armour as second alternate to the annual business meeting of Illinois Association of Park Districts on Saturday, January 30th, 2021.
She would be the third alternate.
No,
April.
because you're the first alternate, so she would be the second alternate.
Oh, there's a delegate and yes, you're correct. Sorry about that.
Are you talking 2022 or 2021?
Oh crap, 22, sorry, 2022. Yeah, sorry, I was just reading directly.
I'm sure you didn't have a time machine. Okay.
They'll climb into the DeLorean, it'll be fine. All right, do I have a second on?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Marianne, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Coyne?
Aye.
Commissioner Hulting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel?
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
Yes.
All right.
Just before you hand it over, Jen, I just hope everybody gets a chance to look through that, especially the social media part. It would be good to have discussions of anything that people are unclear about or whatever. So.
Yes, I would suggest that if you have minor things or, even if you have major things, send me the list, or Jennifer Leduc, Commissioner Leduc, send us both, your comments. And if they're minor, non-context related things, we'll do a whole nother edit with the things that were brought up tonight. And with any of those changes, and then we'll bring it back to an appropriate meeting, where we can discuss it, any of the bigger changes again, and go from there. Does that sound good, Jennifer?
Yes. All right, and now I get to turn it over to Commissioner Coyne for the intergovernmental report.
Commissioner Coyne has no report, unless Executive Director Mountcastle has anything that I'm supposed to be working on or looking at or want to talk about.
Not at this moment.
Right. Then I turn it back to, I believe, President Grau at this point.
Thank you. Okay, is there any communications and correspondence? That would be a no. Okay.
No, sorry.
Any new business? No.
Not for me.
Good meeting. I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, good night.
Have a good
Thank you
weekend,
all.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.